Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious. We have the last day of May. This is May 30th, 31st, and we have a really neat shuttle launch. STS-124 delivered the Kibo Module to the International Space Station, but its 7 members were really interesting astronauts and doing several of them some incredible things after their post-shuttle era. And here we see the launch at STS-124 from sort of the back side, where you see the solid rocket boosters and the big ET tank there. And that is solid rocket booster stuff coming at you there. The main engines of the shuttle are launching in the other direction, and you can see the plume back there. And we're going to see some damage that was caused on this flight that many of you might not have seen, the trenches and so forth. And researching STS-124 in 12 years ago, 2008, or not 2008, yeah, 2008, that'd actually be 14 years from now. Researching it, there was some pad damage there that concerned everybody. So, but we are going to finish our launches, our shuttles of May. There we go. 10 shuttles launched in May, 59 astronauts, and we went through every one of them like we're going to in June. So you want to catch Thursday's show with NASA Hugh Harris. The voice of NASA, Mr. Hugh Harris, will be on here Wednesday. Tomorrow we're going to have an educator from Brazil, Jefferson Michaelis, who has a foundation that educates Brazilians, very active in space. He'll be here Wednesday. Thursday, shuttle, the month of shuttles with Hugh Harris, and then Friday, Tales from the White Room with Triple T. Getting into the grind here after our 3 days off. Hope you all enjoyed a Memorial Day vacation and some rest time. But let's look at STS-124 was a supper time blastoff at 5:02 from Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex 39A. With Commander Mark Kelly on his third of 4 shuttle flights. We're going to talk about Kelly here in a minute. There is a beautiful shot of Discovery being lowered onto the external tank and the solid rocket boosters in the vertical assembly building, VAB, and our facilities manager, Dan McCune. Hi, Dan. Thanks for watching Stay Curious. He was a crane operator, possibly doing this mating in the VAB. And launch director, as I go over here to get my shuttle scroll, launch director was obviously Mike Leinbach on this STS-124, but I was just talking a few minutes ago to Bob Seek, who launched a record 57 shuttles, I believe, under Bob's helm in there, talking to Bob about Formula One racing and a little bit about Mark Kelly, who he said he was on a committee with SpaceX for several years, that he's on a board before Mark Kelly became a senator. That's right. We have an astronaut, another astronaut in politics. Let's look at the launch. Beautiful launch. Just after 5 o'clock supper time, 14 years ago, 2008. And here's the crew. And the crew, we're going to go through each one of them here in just a minute. And interestingly, what Mark Kelly said about each of them, kind of the commander's pep talk. Kelly was pilot on 2 shuttle missions, and this is his third, of which he's a commander of. And then he commanded 134, the last launch of Endeavour, that had one of these astronauts on board. But it delivered the Kibo Module, Marty, and I haven't given a shout out to Marty Winkle, my co-producer on Stay Curious for 2 years. We're approaching 585 episodes of Stay Curious, I think today's is, in 2 years. Thank you, Marty, for all you do to be here and run our Streamlabs computer situation to show you like a TV newscast. Stay Curious. But it's a gorgeous, there is Kibo, after it was mated there to the International Space Station, is the largest object put up by the space station. up to the space station. It has a porch on it there that they call I call it a porch. They call it I forget what they call it, Marty. They've got another name for it. But with that robotic arm, astronauts are looking through a window, and they have science experiments out there in space that they can, with of course, airlock, put things in and out of the space station there. Three parts: the pallet-like thing that's the back porch. On top is another section of it there, and then the big cylinder. This is the largest object put up on the space station, and it occupies, right there is where it occupies, Marty, on the outside of one of the axes there that run through the space station. Yep, there it is right there. Kibo, very important, and it has been doing a lot of science over its 14 years it has been on the International Space Station. Well, we wanted to show you again this beautiful shot of the back side, we call it, of the launch of a shuttle. This is the SRBs have ignited. That is the plume coming out from the trench there that's designed to blow that out away from the pad, as well as the sound suppression system. And it was damaged quite a bit. And I asked Marty if he'd been out to the pad and seen the damage. He was a Space Launch Processing Engine computer engineer management, Marty was, and he said he hadn't, but he was out there plenty of the pads after an Atlas or after a Saturn V launch. And you said there was always a lot of damage out there, right? And big Saturn V's blowing out some of the tile. But the SRBs took some of this out. There you see a different angle of those are big slats of concrete, Marty. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
There. And then look at all the pieces and bits that were blown out of the flame trench there as the shuttle blasted off. And that's why we call it a blast off. It blasted stuff real good there. Well, here is the crew again of STS-124. And Ken Ham, Karan Nyberg, Ron Garin, Michael Fossum, Akiko Hashidi, and Gary Chamaroff were the 7 astronauts. It included Hishodi and Fossum would later become ISS commanders of the International Space Station. And Hashidi we're going to talk about here in a minute. 3 spaceships he's flown to space. The June 2008 blastoff of Discovery marked the 154th NASA crewed space flight, 123rd of the shuttle, though it was numbered 124. They got out of sequence. The 10th flight after Columbia's disaster. There were only 11 flights remaining in the shuttle program afterwards. This was the 26th flight to the International Space Station, the 35th flight of Discovery. And of course, Discovery holds the record as I look at my scroll here. OV-103 has a record 39 flights in space, so it would have 4 more after this. Let's look at some of the astronauts here. The commander Mark Kelly was born in Orange, New Jersey in 1964. He is retired now. He spent a total of 54 days in space. And of course, he has a twin brother. Mark Kelly's twin brother is, of course, Scott. Scott spent 11 months continuously in space. All right, so he's got a lot more space time than his brother. I forget which is the older. The parents didn't tell him, I know, until they were like teenagers or older. Scott's also retired. They're the only siblings to have traveled in space, though we have a couple father-sons that have been to space. Kelly's wife, then Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, was shot and nearly killed in an assassination attempt in 2011 in Tucson, and 6 people died in that shooting. And so Giffords have become active in different Americans for Responsible Solutions and the gun issue. but he won a 2020 United States Senate special election in Arizona that was replacing John McCain, who passed away. So he is a U.S. Senator making policy, and you know he's favoring all the space stuff that he can, and a good guy by all counts in there. So politician, Senator Mark Kelly now, commander of this flight 14 years ago. And I found it very interesting. I read some things that he said about his command. He was a pilot twice. He says being the commander is different than a pilot, that you're responsible for the overall mission. You have to worry about the whole thing, the training drill your other crew members are getting, mission success and mission safety. So being the commander is a comprehensive job and requires more time. He says, I was really a little bit surprised at how much more there was to it, but I think it's just as rewarding as well. So then he goes down and talks about each of the of his crewmates here, and he says, Ken Ham as a pilot knows the orbiter better than anybody I've seen. This is his first flight. Then my lead EVA crew members, Mike Fossum, who did 3 spacewalks on my previous space flight, STS-124. We've flown together, and I have all the confidence in the world of Mike. Karan Nyberg, she's the mission specialist 1 and sits on the flight deck in ascent and reentry. She's also the lead for my robotic operations. She'll be flying 3 robotic arms in space. Incredibly motivated, well ahead of the game, and I expect great things from her. Then Kelly says about Ron Garan, my flight engineer, a colonel in the Air Force, is going to be his first time in space. As well as Karan and Ken. He has 3 rookies. He's got a lot on his plate, Ron Garan does, but I'm sure he'll do a great job. I kind of wish it was me getting outside with him, but I can't do that. But we expect great things from Ron as well. Then I have Aki Hoshide, our Japanese crew member who grew up in New Jersey, kind of like me. That's an interesting thing about our flight. Mark Kelly said we have 4 people from New Jersey on the mission. And he said he was looking at Aki as the payload commander, and he's giving him a lot of responsibility, and he's completely taken it on. This whole crew I added up, as you see him at the wave goodbye at the van. That's about 3 o'clock on the 5 o'clock launch. They have 1,068 days in space, all this crew here. And the commander, Ham had 25 days and Kelly 54 total. I mean, I'm not talking about at this point in time, but after their careers, they ended up having 1,068 days in space, almost 3 years accumulated by this crew of STS-124. And one of the more extraordinary astronauts, period, is this gentleman, Aki Hoshide, who's 53 years old. Dig this, 3 spacecrafts he's flown in, 340 days in space. He was first launched as a mission specialist. This was his first flight. Okay. And then he was went up on the shuttle. Then he went up on a Soyuz spacecraft in July 2002 for a expedition on the International Space Station. I think it was 34. And then he went up with Crew Dragon 2, Crew 2 of SpaceX. He was a member of that. 3 different spacecrafts he's been in. One pretty spacious, the Shuttle, in that cramped Soyuz spacecraft with 3 cosmonauts in it like a sardine. And then he was in the Crew Dragon as the third crew to go up there, the second official operational crew. And he was the commander of the International Space Station on STS or Expedition 65 that just ended. All right, so he just came on board 65, 66. He was up there for that. We're up to 67. 340 days in space, 4 EVAs for Hoshide. And he definitely will probably fly again in space. And then we had Michael Fossum was on the crew 14 years ago of 124, grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He became the chief operating officer of Texas A&M University at Galveston, his alma mater. And he has 193 days in space, served as a mission specialist on Expedition 28, and then was commander of Expedition 29. And if you're in South Dakota, particularly the Huron area, you'll probably run into him. 7 EVAs for Fossum also, 48 hours on those EVAs. Karan Nyberg is very interesting at post-shuttle. She was born in Parkers Prairie, Minnesota, a mechanical engineer, the 50th woman in space on her mission, STS-124. And then she went to space again on a Soyuz spacecraft. So she's got a total of 180 days in space. And she's married to fellow astronaut Doug Hurley, who's an active astronaut, and they reside together in the Houston suburb of League City. Her hometown is Vining, Minnesota. She considers herself of Norwegian ancestry. On the 50th anniversary of Valentina Tereshkova's famous solo flight of Vostok 6 in June 1963, 2 women were in space, and Nyberg was one of them. The other was the Chinese astronaut Wang Yaping on the Tiangong space station. She posted a photograph of a stuffed dinosaur that she created in orbit from space station scraps, thought to be the first stuffed animal handcrafted in space. She also did quilting in space, and that's her passion. And so coming back from her missions to space, she's been inspired by her time in space by these particularly photographs that she took that have inspired a fabric line called Earth Fuse. She has a partnership with Robert Kaufman Fabrics, and Nyberg is now involved with that industry of making fabrics. And if you know anything about quilting, quilters love fabric. They save every scrap of fabric that they ever cut, all right, because they might be able to use it in something. And this is I don't think that's a quilt, but those are her images that she took from space. That's part of the line, though, but it would make a beautiful quilt. Ron Garan on this mission's up next, and there's Ron in American Space Museum that's right, with Triple T, Travis Thompson. This was September last year, 2021. Ron is age 60. He's born in Yonkers, New York, Russian descent. He's got 3 sons. He founded the Mana Energy Foundation, which assists villages of Rwanda making potable water. Then he retired. He's written a couple books. One of his books is called Orbital Perspective, which is just that, looking at the perspective of Earth on there. He wrote a children's book, and he wrote a fiction book also that he was autographing when he was here at the American Space Museum in September. But what I find here's Ron being, I was on vacation, and Ron was interviewed on Stay Curious by Bart Martindale. Thank you, Bart, for taking over the host duties, and you're welcome to do that anytime, Bart. We love having you here. And of course, Bart is a communicator out there at Kennedy Visitors Complex, and deals with a lot of the astronauts hands-on out there. So, but what I find is Ron Garan in retirement will be the chief pilot for current robotic flight operations and upcoming human space flights via balloon by this company, Marty, called Worldview. And this is the apparatus that they hope to put people in a spaceship that looks like this, so you can look out those windows and oh my God, that would, I don't know if I'd like that or not, tell you the truth. But if it's safe, it's safe, you know. But imagine a gondola like that you're looking at the world at the edge of space. That's what Ron Garan's up to now. And we got a little note there about Ken Ham on this mission. His nickname is Hawk. He was an F-18 Super Hornet, the lead carrier suitability test pilot. All right. So I bet he's watching that new Top Gun movie, Marty, that's out that everybody loves. Went out this week. Ham is now working for Bigelow Aerospace in North Las Vegas, which makes they're going to make habitats for space. There's actually one that is still on the International Space Station, and he loves spending his spare time sharing his experiences with teenagers and tries to help them learn new skills through educational programs. 25 days in space for Ken Ham. And our last astronaut on STS-124 that was blasted to space with the Kibo Module is this gentleman, Gregory Chamatov. He's 59, born in Montreal, Canadian-born American, became a Canadian citizen. He went up on STS-124, spent about 150 days, and then he came down on STS-126. And then he spent another 10 days in space with his commander Mark Kelly on this. That's on this 124 mission on the last flight of Endeavour orbiter OV-105. But why do we like Chamatov so much? Well, while aboard the International Space Station on Expedition 18, Chamatov and Garriott, Richard Garriott, who was a magician, and he's actually a tourist on space. His dad, Owen Garriott, was an Apollo astronaut on the Skylab missions. They filmed the first magic show in space, all right? And they also filmed a science fiction movie made in space called Apogee of Fear. Now, why don't know about that? I guess I got to get up on my science fiction. But Apogee for Fear, I'll have to Google that on Movie Database. And but one of the last things, well, interestingly, on Stay Curious today, involves bagels, yummy bagels. These just aren't regular bagels. These are Montreal-style bagels that were taken to space by Chamatov. All right. These handmade bagels were made at his cousin's bagel bakery. All right. And and what makes a handmade Montreal style bagel, you ask? I was looking for his cousin's bagel to give it a shout out, but I don't have that right in front of me. I have it in front of me here. There we go. Anyway, I forget the name of his cousin's bakery, but he took these bagels to space. Fairmount Bagels, there it is. And Montreal bagels are distinctively handmade, firewood baked bagel in contrast to New York style. These are smaller, thinner, sweeter, denser with a larger hole, more like a donut, and always baked in a wood-fired oven. Contains malt, egg, and no salt, and is boiled in honey-sweetened water before being baked. Now you know on Stay Curious about the Montreal-style bagels. He just didn't take a couple bagels up there, Chamatov. He took up there 18 sesame seed, 3 bags of them, all right. And I said to Marty when we were doing our little pre-production meeting, I thought bread and stuff was kind of foreboding up there because of the crumbs. And seeds? Are you kidding me? Well, so they must have laxed the rules up there on bread products up there, Marty. And that makes me stay curious, and I'll have to look into that. So, well, hope you all enjoyed a little kickoff today of our Stay Curious program this week. We know Mark and Tom Usiak were watching. Thank you very much from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Dave Stange, I was following his vacation in Michigan. Looks like he had a good time. Elko Newman, thank you for watching Stay Curious, as well as Ishmael Ramal and Carlton Bailey, regulars. Thank you, Carlton, and Keith Sewell, another regular out there, helping spread the word about Stay Curious, where you're going to get astronaut info like you got today, celebrating Space Shuttle legacy and an occasional astronaut birthday or two, as well as other space history. And but what we got going on now with space history is the International Space Station. We don't want you to forget about it, orbiting our skies. Now that you're out summertime and everybody's is getting some outdoor time around sunset, download that application so you can know when the space station's going over. You'll even get an alert about it because you're only going to see it around twilight time. That's when them big solar panels are reflecting the sunlight, and that's what we're seeing, all the reflection off of all the metallic surfaces there on the space station. And orbiting it 16 times a day, about once a month, wherever you live. It's visible in the morning twilight, and then another week during the month, it's visible in the evening twilight. You're never going to see it at midnight or 11 o'clock at night because it's not up high enough to catch sunlight. It's only 200 and some miles above the Earth. So you got to see it after the sun goes below the horizon and that sun is still reflecting light up in the air that it's catching. And we want to not forget our wonderful astronauts up there. We've got 3 Russians as part of Expedition 67. Oleg, Dennis, and Sergei are up there, as well as our commander, American Commander Jill Lindgren, Bob Hines, Jessica Watkins, and ESA's Samantha Cristoforetti. Jessica is the first African American woman to live on the space station, and Samantha Cristoforetti of ESA has already spent, well over 300 days in space, I think. This is her second long duration flight. So we want you to think about them up there working hard and doing things and keeping our American presence up there at the space station that we built with the shuttles like STS-124 that we celebrate today. So shuttles of May, Marty. We'll be bringing you the shuttles of June. We'll start that when we have Thursday with Mr. Hugh Harris here with us. Tomorrow, stay curious with Jefferson Michaelis, a friend of our museum who has a foundation in Brazil where he's brought in Brazilian students here. We're anxious to see him. Karan, Conklin, our executive director, good friends with Jefferson, and we're looking at doing some good things with him as he's going to be bringing students up here in September. And then, of course, Friday will be Tales from the White Room with the one and only Travis Thompson. So let me get some rocket fuel and tell everybody thank you for watching. Stay curious. I'm Marquette, and we'll see you again to bridge the space between us.